Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Gargoyles episode reviews. We're picking up with part 3. So, without further ado, welcome to episode 3 of a 5-parter. That means we're half through, and the action, plot twists, and villains will be ramping up. This episode is about all things new. Sights, people, technology, food. We've seen the last of the Middle Ages for a while. We're now firmly in 1994. I'm going to review these as if we haven't seen the whole series. I'm a sucker for spoilers, though, so I'm still going to discuss them. They're in the 2020 moment sections. Season 1, Episode 3, Awakening, Part 3. Reasons for existence. Third episode, introduce recurring characters, show how the clan is handling the new world, and ramp up the plot toward the climax. Main antagonists. The new world, this obviously is the apparent main antagonist, as the others haven't revealed their plots yet. Times, October 5th, 1994. Locations, New York City, New York, USA. A recap kicks off the episode. In brief, we get the terms of the spell, castle rises above the clouds, which is one heck of a unique requirement, shots of the castle rising above the clouds, Xanatos' explanation, and the commando attack. And then the detective swearing to investigate. Finally, after 2 episodes of hearing the detective vow to get to the bottom of this, because apparently she's the only cop in New York City capable of investigating explosions that totaled cars and almost killed people on the street, she enters Xanatos' building. She is voiced by Sally Richardson Whitfield. We don't know it, but Xanatos' headquarters is called the Erie Building. Erie can mean eagle's nest or can refer to a castle/structure on a high place. Greg and his team never miss a trick to make this show even greater. It's not a reference to the Kelsteinhaus either. We've got a picture of the large entry room, hall area of the Erie Building. Looks very nice, very tasteful. And Owen is meeting Elisa there. Owen runs interference like a pro. He's adept at handling tricky situations. We open with Owen explaining to the detective that a new generator exploded. Xanatos is very, very sorry about the mess. These things happen, you know. It's a risk of business. Okay, he didn't say that. Xanatos promises to pay for the damages. Riding Hood isn't buying it. If Xanatos won't talk to her, she'll come back with a warrant and more cops. We see she's not afraid of the big dogs. She'll challenge anybody if she needs to, even if they're way out of her league. This isn't always a good trait. You know, I don't know what actual department she works for as a detective. You know, they've got vice, homicide, whatever else. So I really don't know what her specific designation is. And I don't know why there aren't cops swarming all over the place at this point. But this is a city that's not in our world, so I guess we just roll with it. According to Greg, this is the first time we hear Owen's surname, Burnett. This comes from Alan Burnett, who worked heavily on Batman, the animated series. It's another one of my favorite shows, by the way. Michael Reeves, who was the main power in Gargoyles aside from Greg and did a lot of writing for Batman as well, chose the name. Trivia: Burnett is a Scottish name. The Burnetts were the financiers of the other clans back in the day. Today their castle is fully restored, with gardens that rival any in Scotland. The name itself means dark. It's similar to the word Burnett, something Owen definitely is not, though his background is a bit dark. The name Owen means strong warrior. While it's not stated in the show, Owen is the head of Xanatos Enterprises Security. This title is mentioned in one of the Disney magazine spots for Gargoyles. He is also an exceptional martial artist and not too shabby with a handgun. Owen smiles. That's right, he smiles. Write it on the calendar. He's showing her that the threat isn't why he's letting her come up to the castle. He's doing so because he's decided it'll benefit Xanatos. There's a picture of him. Well, I guess it's sort of a smirk, but, well, it's a smile for Owen. And so when Owen smiles, look out. Something's up. 2020 moment. Owen seems to find Elisa intriguing, or at least amusing. In general, when he smiles, it's either in relation to her or to Alex. Puck no doubt sees her as a source of complications, aka fun and games. We have a picture of the ever-charming Xanatos meeting Elisa. It says, he's as charming and charismatic as ever. It's his territory she's in. As she and Owen step off the elevator into the Great Hall, Xanatos meets her and greets her by name, Detective Maza. He casually explains he just got off the phone with the mayor. Translation, I have more power in this city than you can imagine. Don't mess with me. I am humoring you because I choose to. I do what I want. She's not impressed by him or his castle in the clouds. Xanatos, still smiling, then casually explains that his men repelled an invasion by a rival corporation. Now she's impressed, but only by his pride. What, does he think he's a country? His reply is classic. His multinational corporation is bigger than many countries she could name. And this is very true. Sort of like Amazon. And there she is, looking all sassy. New York cop attitude in full force. Too bad Xanatos is even less impressed by her than she is of him. He's taking the high road and being polite, though. 2020 moment. Xanatos doesn't brag. This is yet another trait that sets him apart from your usual antagonist. He knows his capabilities. He knows his weaknesses. He owns up to his mistakes. Well, would you looky here, kids. Here we have a mature adult on our hands. This is refreshing in both an antagonist and a protagonist. Elisa's only comeback is that he better have permits for the weapons. He does. Which makes me wonder, how does one get these permits? Or what are they for? All laser weapons? How about plasma? Railguns? What uses do the permits cover? We have the ever famous meme of Ron Swanson handing over his quote-unquote permit. It says, not to worry, I have a permit. It says, I can do what I want. Signed, Ron. Let's talk about Xanatos' frank disclosure of the cause of the explosion. He doesn't even try to hedge. Is it a carryover from his reason for mentioning the mayor? Is it him taunting her, believing he can say anything because he's above the law? Is he trolling her? I doubt it's a way to get rid of her. An invasion gives her way more reason to investigate than does a generator explosion, which was the story for the press. And just a tip for real life, don't talk to the cops. Any lawyer will tell you that. Meanwhile, the trio is destroying the castle's kitchen. I want this kitchen, and the freezer with its contents. Kitchen is amazing. Those racks, all full of meat, like sides of cows. I'm assuming Xanatos anticipated the Gargs eating him out of castle and home. Back outside, Owen acts as the, quote, bell, unquote, and extricates Xanatos from further Maza questions. Xanatos is as polite as ever, saying he hopes he answered all her questions satisfactorily. Don't talk to the cops, people. I don't think she was expecting him to be so transparent. It's another instance where telling the bald truth is more shocking and more effective than telling a lie or a half-truth. Don't tell the cops anything. And there he is, towering over her, and she's not looking impressed, and he's not looking intimidated. Every Xanatos-Maza interaction ever. Never show your opponent signs of doubt. Xanatos hands Maza over to Owen, who begins to lead her out. She looks up to see movement. One of the Gargs. Owen smiles. Again. He's actually showing some teeth here. What the heck? He laughs it off. Okay. Chuckles it off, and says the place is spooky at night. Reaction is not what we expect from him once we get to know him. I'd have thought he'd say something like, the light plays tricks, or just her imagination, or a guard on the parapets. Owen and Maz's interaction are always a treat. 2 smiles in one night, grab your ice skates, 'cause hell hath frozen. No trespassing. Here's a picture of Elisa in, looks like an unused part of the castle, which is kind of weird because the castle was just constructed. There's still junk on the floor, weapons and such, almost like they put that piece fully formed up there. But I don't know how the actual construction went down. Even if she found evidence, it would not be admissible, is the caption. Owen escorts her to the elevator, but instead of riding to the ground floor, she does some trespassing without a warrant. She exits onto the outside. She hears something coming up the steps. This evidently is a threat that could justify deadly force, despite the fact she's illegally snooping through a private citizen's property, because she draws her weapon. Oh, and there's Bronx, the Garg beast. You don't see that every day. She doesn't shoot him, which is impressive. That would be most people's response, especially a New York cop. The dog Goyle appears. Goliath shows up behind her a second later and promptly crushes her pistol. Facing two monsters, she promptly freaks out, backs up, and falls over the edge of the parapet. I don't think those battlements were up to the safety code. Here's Goliath, catching her in midair. Yes, falling faster than gravity. No Disney death by falling tonight. No physics either. Let's back up. We see later that Xanatos loves his cameras. There must have been a buy-one-get-one sale at the CCTV camera supplier because he has a camera for every single cinematic angle of the building. He also has a direct link to them in his office's 5x6 computer/TV screen. Why isn't someone seeing this? Why aren't alarms going off? She's in a part of the castle that's not fully restored yet, or so I assume, but the elevator still has a camera. Now, back to Maza doing skydiving sans parachute. Goliath dives after her and catches her. He can't fly, though, only glide, so we're stuck on a ledge now. Maza is now impressed. But she's not scared. Obviously, she decided that if he saved her, he probably isn't going to eat her. Of course, maybe he saved her to eat her. He asks what she was doing trespassing. She is still stuck on the fact that he can talk. She wants to know his name. Seriously? This is not the first thing that comes to most people's minds when facing something like this, I think. She seems to have already moved beyond the monster moment. As Goliath can only glide, not fly, he has to give her a lift on his back as he climbs up the castle. Apparently there were no wind gusts the entire way up because he clawed his way back up. Maybe it was because he didn't want to freak her out and make her fall again. At the castle, he asks her once more why she's snooping. She hedges. He gives her a short history of their previous life and their experience with Xanatos. Only he knows of their existence. What's Owen? Chopped liver? No one ever gives Owen enough credit. No one but Xanatos. She gives Goliath a short history of what a detective is and how the city gets its laws. They decide that since he wants to know more about the city and she wants to know more about him, they'll go on a tour next night. She's going to meet him here. Really? How do you plan on sneaking back in? You don't live here. Goliath points her to a different rooftop instead. I'm glad somebody's got some common sense. She meets the rest of the clan. They're wary but interested. There's Brooklyn. He sniffs her. How good are their senses of smell? What's going through her head now? How about the next day? It's surreal for her, surely. It must be exhilarating as well. You rang? There's Xanatos in his throne room, his office. Laser rifles, but no laser discs is the caption. He's got a floppy disk in his hand. After Maza leaves, Owen summons Goliath to talk with Xanatos. That's good timing there. In the businessman's office, or throne room as I like to call it, Xanatos explains that the invaders took 3 floppy disks that have classified data on them. He explains them as having spells. The clan needs to get them back before the bad guys can decrypt the data, translate spells. Goliath doesn't bother to ask why Xanatos doesn't use his own men. This is a bit odd, as Goliath likely sees Xanatos as a lord, since the man owns the castle. Lords have soldiers, right? Instead, Goliath asks why Xanatos doesn't use a detective. Xanatos comments that Goliath is learning fast. Hold up. Learning how? Maybe the TV? Or maybe the Garg spoke with Owen? Either way, Xanatos doesn't pursue the source of Goliath's knowledge, which I'm sure he regrets later. There's Goliath being mesmerized by the, quote, moving tapestry, and Xanatos looking on in amusement. He thinks Goliath's naivete is refreshing. Moving on, Xanatos lists the 3 locations of the data disks: a tower in the bay, an underground lab, an airship that flies in a holding pattern over the city. They must be hit at once so they can't warn one another. Okay, Walter White, a simultaneous hit it is. Yes, I recorded this, I wrote this in 2016. Xanatos thinks the Gargoyles are fascinating. He's not intimidated at all. Never has been. Good grape, the man is charming. That's the caption for Xanatos putting his hand on Goliath's shoulder and walking him out. Xanatos gets handsy again with the hand on Goliath's shoulder. Xanatos stresses that their enemies must mean to use the combined 9 megabytes they've Megabytes of data on those floppies for some terrible purpose. They really knew how to use data space in those days. After Goliath leaves, Xanatos turns to the back wall where a panel opens. Who stands there? Goliath's second in command. In shadow, but recognizable. The castle is full of secret panels. Xanatos has style. There you can see that huge window that he has in his office. According to Greg, the shadow was supposed to be deeper, more of a silhouette. She wasn't supposed to be so recognizable. Yeah, that really did blow the whole secret there. But even if it was a silhouette, you could still recognize her. That hair is pretty distinctive. I would think maybe a cloaked figure would work. Even a glowing red eye outline would be pretty recognizable. But maybe not completely recognizable. I don't know. We could come up with something else. And my caption there is how and why hasn't she greeted Goliath? And Xanatos is smiling. When you have all the details of your plan going well, you can afford to be confident. Halftime analysis. Things are really getting complicated now. We've got a detective who knows the truth. We've got a rival corp trying to do evil, supposedly, with the data they stole. We've got a mission to get the data back. We've got Goliath's second in command back from the dead. As a middle ep, it's keeping the tension it's built while increasing it in other areas. We're wondering about the new character, Maza. We also are shocked to see Goliath's girlfriend. And what is this plan Xanatos has? The comment is vague enough to mean almost anything. Now, go read the next part, or listen to the next episode. Again, you can leave your comments and your thoughts on this half of the episode in the comment section here or on the site. And of course, remember to like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.